Alright, Sonoma Cup Historic. I had a track guide for this. I've practiced some more, found some more time, so just updating it. Track's 31. I think that's sort of a middle temp for this week. It could be a little lower and it could be a little higher, so keep that in mind. Um, if you haven't seen the old track guide, basically Sonoma, this track is a very flowing track. It's really, I mean, you always want to maintain momentum, but this track you really have to concentrate on that. You lose momentum here, you lose a lot of time. So many fast corners. So we'll go through it in slow-mo through the corners, and then run it out at full speed. Setup is in the description below, but it's 8 ARB, 5 SPO. The curbs here, you use a lot of them. I haven't found any broken wings, any trouble in that regard. So if you do bend a wing, you might want to try 4. And if you're having trouble learning this track, you may want to try a 7 ARB. It'll just be a little bit more forgiving until you get the track down, but 8 I think is really where you have to be to go fast. And this is hot tires, low fuel. This track is really slick on the first 3 laps or so while the tires are cold. So keep that in mind as well. It is really slick on the first few laps. So here we go. Coming up to turn 1. Or I'm not sure if this is actually considered turn 1. Fourth gear, I like to keep it in 4th gear. If you're drafting off someone, you can certainly be in 5th. You might gain maybe a 10th at the most, but I do like to keep it in 4th. I find it just sets it up better for this corner coming up. So 4th gear, coming in, you want to be right up tight against this curb. Basically I'm lifting here and then going to shift into 3rd gear, and again just easy on the throttle, and then shifting into 2nd gear. Little bit of brake, definitely on cold tires. There's more lifting and more braking involved. And basically when you get up to this curb, you want to have the car slowed so that you can be picking up the throttle, because it's a pretty big stretch here of full power. So working up the throttle in 2nd gear, you want to be tight up against this curb. This one I'm not wild about getting actually on the curb. I find it unsettles the car a bit, because you do have quite a bit of steering input in the wheel here. So I like to be just up against it. And as a lot of these corners are, the exit is not really so visible, especially if there's a car in front of you. So make sure you're not following a car wide. It takes a lot of practice to kind of get a feel for where you're at and the speed and such. So shifting up into 3rd gear here pretty quick. You do definitely want to get pretty close to those curbs, make use of all the track. Up into 3rd, up into 4th, eventually here past the hill. Trying to minimize the steering input. Again, momentum here is king on this track, much more so than others I find. And just grazing the edge of this sand. If you get too far over, you do get an X, but you can't get a wheel on it just to graze it, and just keep the wheel straight and open it up here for the next corner. So we're in 4th gear, and then you want to try and aim. You can see the angle of the curb here is going up the hill. That's really where you want to get the car lined up straight. So 4th gear, straightening the wheel, shifting down into 3rd now. So about a couple car lengths before the end of this curb, shifting down into 3rd, and then just picking up the throttle again briefly. On cold tires, there may be a little brake involved here, but on hot tires, you don't have to use the brake. Just modulate the throttle, lift a little bit, get the car turned in, and get back on the power again, because it's a big straight here, and you want to again get that speed going. And another blind exit. So this one, it just takes practice. There's no better way to say it. You just have to practice what speed at the top of the hill you have to be, so you're not drifting over to the left, because you get into that gravel, you're going to lose a tremendous amount of time. Good chance you're probably going to spin out and die. And even if you just get to your wheel a little over, you'll get that X, so watch for that. Shifting up into fourth. Again, this one is going to be real tricky if there's a car right in front of you. You're looking for the change in the pavement color, but that may not be very visible with a car in front of you. So have an eye out for this pylon. Basically, you want to be braking between the pylon and the change in color. You can brake later into this corner, but if you're trying to pass someone, but you will sacrifice a lot of speed into this next straight. So this is the fastest way to do it, but in a race, obviously, may not be the way you want to do it. So braking fourth gear down into third, again between that pylon and this change in color. And there's a bump here. Don't worry about it. First couple times might throw you off a little bit, but it doesn't really unsettle the car that much. But you want to be braking hard, briefly, and get it down into third. And then it's really important to be picking up the power well before the apex here. It'll help settle the back end and obviously get you more speed into this straight. You do want to get on that curb. It will take some practice. If you get too much on, it can kick you too far to the left or lose your back end. So just take some practice about how much you can take there. And then this area here, I don't even know if there's an X at all, but this whole area is available. You just slide it over this curb, get into the pavement here. You got the power going. You just have to get a little practice in, because obviously you can't hit that wall. It has no give to it. But you want to get as close as you can to it without actually hitting it. Working up into fourth gear, and this is where it pays off. Braking early and getting on the throttle early, you can gain some time here for sure. And again, this is a tricky one, as a lot of these corners are. This is a fast line, but if you're in a race, obviously you're exposed on the right here, so you're gonna have to make that decision whether you're defending and going inside or not. But basically, in real time, it looks like I'm braking just past this change in the barrier, but obviously in slow-mo, I'm braking at it. Down into first, pretty hard on the brakes. Again, same thing, hard on the brakes, getting off the brakes and getting on the power before the apex. Again, because this next section, you're going to be full throttle for quite a bit, so it's really important to pick up that throttle. And you want to get just onto this curb. Even if you get a little more onto this curb, that's not the worst thing in the world. You just don't want to run wide, because it will screw you up for the next one, and you'll have to cut some speed in order to correct. So you want to get the wheel straight here, and again, trying to minimize the inputs. Get on this curb as well, just so you're not cranking the wheel too much or having to lift. And then full power, and basically you're just kind of trying to line up this curb up here and this curb up here, and try and straight line it as much as possible. So that was first gear, working up through the gears into fourth, and basically the end of this curb is your turn-in. On cold tires, you're probably going to be lifting here, but on hot tires, you can do it full throttle, as long as you've done it right, of course. And then you want to get onto this curb to try and open up as much as possible for the next one. Again, on cold tires, you'll probably be lifting a lot here. There's a little lift here just to steady the car. So it's still in fourth, and gonna just get onto this curb as well. You can do this when the tires are hot, and if you've nailed it, you can do it full throttle, but I find the back end gets a little twitchy and you may have to do some counter steering, and that may actually cost you more time, so you can practice doing it at full throttle. But I find just a little lift in between the two curbs there actually just gets you consistently a faster lap time, less squeal in the tires and such. And then again, another blind exit. So basically just kind of aiming for the building on the left here type thing, getting the wheel straight, it's full power. You just don't want to get over this curb here again, because if you get onto that sand, you're gonna probably spin out. Best case scenario, you'll save it, but you'll be so slow. And just right up on the edge there, again, you get a little tire over there, you'll get an X. Now this part, if you've done it well and the tires are hot, you really want to keep it in fourth gear till the RPMs max out. If you do any short shifting into fifth, I find you lose time here. So really max out the RPMs. Here I am shifting up into fifth, and again, just trying to minimize the steering input, so keeping it close to the left. And again, in a race situation, there might be a guy on the right, so this is all textbook, but in real life, you may not be doing it this way. Get on these curbs. It's going to open up the next one, and basically, as you see the curbs start to turn left, you want to start turning to the right. In fifth gear, when it's cold tires, you probably want to actually be holding this in fourth gear right now. But fifth gear, turn to the right, and it's a little lift just to keep that back end from sliding out on you, but you do have to keep some throttle on to keep that back end steady. And you want to get on these curbs, not over them, but you do have to use this curb to keep the car as straight as possible. I get a little counter steer here. That costs me just a little bit of time, 2-3 hundredths, 4 hundredths maybe. But by the time you get to the breaking point for the hairpin, you've actually gained it back. And then using the curb on exit here, again, don't touch the sand and make sure you're on the pavement before that curb ends. And then coming up to the cones, on some tracks I find cones can actually bend your wing. I've hit these lots of times. They have not on this track. You want to be right up as close as you can to this cone. If you hit it, like I said, I haven't had any troubles so far. So do that at your own risk. But basically at the cone there, braking down into first gear, this is pretty heavy braking, and obviously you're on the left side and there's a mile of space on the right, so it's a big passing opportunity. So you may have to defend, but hard braking, and basically you're looking for this tire, the furthest out tire here. You want to get on the power by that time, or even a little before maybe. Just slowly releasing the brakes, picking up the throttle, just to keep that back end steady. I believe if you keep the left tire left of the yellow line here, you're safe. If you get the left tire over, it's a 1X. I think there also, if you really abuse it, I think there is also a slowdown here, but an X for sure. So keep that left tire over the left, or over the yellow line. You should be safe. and just picking up the throttle, unwinding the wheel. You want to hug it pretty tight along this yellow line, and then when you've got the last tire here, you definitely want to have the wheel pretty much straight and full throttle, and it's full speed until turn 1. Again, this is a pretty big straight, so that's the lesson for the whole track is just try and get on the power early, because there's so many short straights here. It will cost you a lot of time if you late brake. So that's a 123 basically flat. So hopefully that helps. We'll see you out there. Good luck. Watch out for the guys in front of you. Lots of places on this track to crash or crash into somebody. So be careful out there. Good luck. See you next time. Hit the like or subscribe.